Hey everyone, Mr. Devil here, Kenny Danico, 3-time Stanley Cup champion of the New Jersey Devils, and you're listening to the Uncle Puckers New Jersey Devils podcast with Chris, Dan, Bobby, and Tony, the Uncle Puckers. Let's go Devils!
It is. It's porno music. What's up, everybody? How's everybody doing tonight?
Doing well.
Excellent.
Doing well. Absolutely.
Like Ken Danico said, we are the Uncle Puckers. Chris, Dan, and Bobby right now, waiting for Tony to wake up from his nap in Lithuania. So he said he'll be hopping on soon. So how's everybody doing? Everybody have a good Labor Day? Ready to, September's finally here, man. That means we are a day away from NFL kickoff. We are a month or so away from NHL. This is the best time of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Bob, I got a question for you.
Sure.
Well, it's more of a, I think that's a question. Do you think that they should shorten the Major League Baseball season? I feel like it's like basketball. Like, we're now entering the 9th month of the basketball playoffs. Like, I feel like we're seriously at that point. Like, it's such a long season, man. Like, how does anybody still give a shit?
It is tough, right? I do kind of struggle with this one because I kind of baseball purist in a way, right? So I don't really need to see it change. But then, sometimes that 162, man, it's quite a lot to go through. So, and you take a year like this year, where even though, say, the Mets are playing better as of late, the expectations were so high,
right,
coming after last year. This is probably my least watched year ever, and I've watched them when they were terrible. I'm just that deflated by management or whatever, like, to get to that point and then to crumble back down, which is like the complete inverse of what the Devils are doing. Like, we're projecting up. So they just pissed me off, and the podcast came around, gave me something to do, so we're good.
Where did the Mets go from here, though? I mean, like, they had like one of the highest payrolls. Everything fell apart.
They were very smart with their trades.
110 games out of first.
Yeah, which is amazing. They only play 162, right? They were very smart with their trades, though. They ate a ton of money in order to basically get a bunch of first-round picks from the last couple of years. So they jumped up the timeline a couple of years. So I think they're going to be more competitive than anticipated next year, but not a contender. And then after that, they should be ready to go.
All right, so how many teams are in MLB?
I don't know if they're at 30 or 32, to be honest with you.
So whatever. So 30, 32 teams. And at this point, there's maybe, 12 teams that are actually, like, in the mix, that are actually playing important games.
There's a lot in the hunt now, the way that they set up the new wild card situation. So it does keep a lot more teams into it, a lot, towards the end of the year. That is kind of its own problem when you get to, like a single wild card playing game or whatever. That doesn't work for me in baseball. But it does keep there's a lot more teams engaged than you would think. Because even at, 5-6 games back this late in the season, it's not impossible.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like listening to the radio today and stuff, and they have all the updates and stuff. And I'm just like, I can't believe baseball's still going on. And they still have another month. Yeah. Like, it's so much baseball. Like, if you cut the season in half, it would still be a long, good season, if you did 82s, like hockey,
Yeah.
You maybe start it in, what would you start it? Maybe like around July, and you get done still in October, and you still have that whole chunk of spring that nobody cares about anyway.
I know.
It's such a long
I think
season.
Realistically, we would get value out of it if we did cut it down, but the Players Union never go for that, right? Because it's all tied to their salaries and the games played. But weren't we just at, like, wasn't it 158, like, I don't know, 20 years ago, 30 years ago when we were young? Like, they opened up like a big 4 more games or something.
I don't remember
I don't
that.
really have
I kind of always
memory
remember it at 164.
62.
62. Yeah. I mean, I know at like the NFL, they're thinking, or it's probably going to happen, to go to an 18-game season.
I was going to ask you, like, don't you find it kind of crazy that NFL plays so few games compared to the other sports?
A physical game, and
I mean, is it the only game that's physical? I mean, I'm pretty amazed at basketball. Like, you have those guys running nonstop, doing what they do for the same amount of games as hockey. And hockey, I mean, come on, I know there's line changes and stuff,
but there's no sport that is as physical as look, man. If you're any football player. I don't care, especially if you're on the line, you're every play you are wrestling with a 300-pound guy whose job is to take your fucking head off. Yeah. If you're a running back, every play you're basically getting hit by a fucking Volkswagen. And it's all the time. It takes years off their career. And football, unlike every other sport, is the most, I would say, team sport that there is. For a play to work, all 12 guys have to know exactly what they're doing. They have to do the right thing to game plan. What's that?
The headsets always get to me. It's like remote control players with the headsets,
Well, I call them plays in.
Yeah, I
know.
So,
you have your offensive, your OC or your DC, depending, what side of the ball you're on. They're calling the plays in to the quarterback or to whoever has a green dot on their helmet on defense is the one that's taking the plays in from the DC. So your game plan is so in depth when it comes to football. Every week you're playing a new opponent that has new, different skill sets you have to account for different. So it's a lot more physical and everything. Even these guys, these NFL players that play on short weeks, like a Sunday and a Thursday, that takes their fucking toll. Like you have no time to game plan, and then you're going into a game 3 days after you just spent 3 hours getting your ass beat.
Yeah,
it's tough. A lot.
You know what amazes me about football, and I kind of like their schedule the way it is, and hockey and basketball are the sweet spot to me. Football needs to be shorter like that, and baseball, as we kind of touched on, is a little bit too much. But what amazes me about football is with that few amount of games, and then when we get down to like the last 5 weeks or so, and they're starting to put together the potential playoff bracket, I can't understand how the hell they figure that out with so many teams within like a game of each other. And I see all these standings. Hockey was always easy to me. It was mathematically simple.
Right.
Baseball too, a little weird with the wild cards.
Back and that's it.
But football,
I
never
you have to make up.
Yeah, football's tough.
Well, I mean, I think football is, football and hockey are my two favorite sports. But like, I think that you can't ask a football player to play more than one game a week. That's a little, even if you play on a Thursday, like you're kind of like rolling your eyes a little bit.
I don't know.
Like,
have
you ever watched a football game?
Sure, but I've seen like Mick Foley would do 3 matches in a week.
Absolutely,
I mean, and he got his ass kicked as hard as any lineman.
Yeah,
I think they could. It's just like that. Nobody's used to it, and so I get it. If you asked them all to do it tomorrow, I agree with you.
And when it comes to the NFL, like the top tier players, I mean, like we were just talking about it the other day about Austin Matthews' contract, right? He's $13 million, $13.5 million. He's the highest paid player in the NHL now at that. Like most guys in the NFL don't show up for $13 million. Like, you're fucking wide out 3, it gets paid that, the contracts that these guys are getting is like, these guys are made out of fucking money. So the NFL themselves, like, you're not going to do anything more to jeopardize Patrick Mahomes or, Nick Bosa just signed, he's a D-man in San Francisco, and he just signed like a $155 million guaranteed 5-year contract. Like, the money is stupid. So, I mean, they're going to do everything they can to protect themselves and protect their franchises.
I'm surprised, though, like, the NFL doesn't want even more. Like, all things, everybody gets greedy, Yeah. And I'm sure, like, they look at it and said, what can we do to make even more money?
Well, they've actually done a lot to not necessarily be playing in the game. So once the Super Bowl ends, right? So that's in February. Then for the next 2 months, it's all the combine, the draft. And I mean, this is like NFL Network 24/7. It is about evaluating every college player. That's all everybody worries about. Then the draft
similar
comes.
Ratings to the Stanley Cup Finals.
Exactly. And then the draft comes and the ratings are huge. And then you have a couple of weeks of just talking about the draft. And then you have, free agency opens up, and that's a whole thing. So they spaced everything out. I mean, they got to the point where the schedule release is a big day in the NFL. Like, that's everyone's looking like, holy shit, who are we playing this year? When are our games? Who are we opening up against? How many Monday night games do we get? This and that. So, I mean, it's a completely different animal when it comes to football, NFL, and every other sport in this country. The NFL is just on a whole different fucking level.
Yeah, it's definitely a game suited for like America. I understand why it's so successful here.
And hello, Tone.
Yo, what's up, guys?
How are you, buddy?
As good as can be. How you doing?
Good, good. So I was listening to something the other day, and they were talking about they brought this subject up, and I was thinking about it, and I was like, I got to ask you guys. So name a song or however many songs that at one point you absolutely loved, and just through the sheer overplaying of it, it makes you sick to your fucking stomach now when you hear it.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them.
Yeah. I mean, my number one is probably Piano Man. I remember when I was a little kid and that song came out, and I loved it, like all through high school, and then like I started working in bars, and it was on the jukebox 24/7, and then the radio. Now I seriously I get a little nauseous every time I hear the piano in the beginning.
That is a good example, definitely.
How about you? Do you have anything off the top of your head, guys?
I was thinking REM, which I like the band. It's great. But they had, a couple songs that were just really overplayed. Maybe not even their best stuff, but I can't even stand it when they come on. And I like the band.
Like Losing My Religion?
That's the first one that came to mind. But, they had a couple others that were I never really liked to begin with, but that were really big songs. So, I don't know.
Another one for me was Hotel California.
Yeah.
I can't stand that song anymore. So, how about you, John?
There's a few, man. Sweet Child of Mine, Welcome to the
Can't
Jungle.
listen to it anymore.
And these are all bands that I like. AC/DC. I love AC/DC. I mean, but if I had never heard Shook Me All Night Long again, it's good.
So you're basically like that way with Appetite, the whole album.
Yeah, I listen to a lot of underground shit, but I love the old bands like that. But there's this, you just how many times can you hear Shook Me All Night Long? I mean, even I remember when MTV was playing it, it was on every day a bunch of times, and it's with that kind of shit. It's so weird because, as we all know, those albums, there's so much better songs on those records, and maybe it's because they're not outplayed. That's why we probably think that, But I mean,
that's true. Yeah.
I remember
Metallica. The whole
what do you
Metallica
got, Bob?
Black.
I just got some old. I hadn't listened to Guns N' Roses for a while, and I just bought some live stuff from like the late '80s, early '90s. That's good. So I'm listening to that again, just a little bit something different to Jim. But for me, I can't really think of anything off the top of my head except for maybe Air Supply. Dude.
Were you
I'm
ever
kidding,
a fan?
Of course. I'm kidding.
I remember
It burns me up when I hear that shit.
I was working at the bars. I was probably about 16 years old, and I was working in the little food area, which was right next to the bar, and the jukebox was right there. And we were packed one day, and it was summertime. The place was mobbed, and there was this 300-pound biker dude standing in the corner, and he just kept feeding money into the jukebox, and he kept on playing Back in Black. The whole album, over and over and over again.
I thought he was going to say he was playing Air Supply. I got really nervous.
And he's got his beer, he's got his shot, and finally I was like, buddy, I'm like, enough with the AC/DC. And he looks at me and he goes, ain't nothing give me a hard on like Jack Daniels and AC/DC, and just started doing his fucking shots. It's like, all right, I guess I can't argue with that. I don't want to know about your hard on, but
How about
Is he
that?
visiting from Tennessee or something?
Right?
Oh, he might have been. Who the hell knows?
New Tennessee.
we used to work at the sawmill. They had a jukebox in there. They would always play it. I like Meatloaf and all that stuff. When I was a kid, they used to always.
My wife
play.
makes a really good meatloaf.
Yeah, they used to always play that shit constantly.
I know.
Sorry to hurt you guys, but U2, anything U2, I don't want to hear anymore. And I'm talking about the hits, the ones that they over. We had that jukebox, Chris, you might remember, and they had the certain discs they always played. I think it was Meatloaf, U2, the Octung Baby. I think that was out when we were working there.
That came out in '93.
They would just play the same songs over. I think it was Dashboard Light from Meatloaf that would constantly. You'd always get the drunk people singing in the corner, and when you're not drunk and you see drunk people, it gets a little annoying. So I think that kind of it's burnt into my brain.
Whatchamacallit, Meatloaf, and that was the other one. When we used to go bowling, and we do the blackout bowling, and they would always play Paradise by the Dashboard,
Four Non-Blondes.
Pool Hall always played that.
That's a good one, Bob.
But that's the one that gets to me now. I finally
that.
got one. Yeah, that one.
Yeah, I like that. That's
You're right, Dan. The Pool Hall. Yeah, I remember.
The Pool Hall would always play it. And that song, when you first heard it, you were like, "This is a great song," and then
quite a story.
Yeah, it's quite a story.
Yeah,
and
that shit sucks.
Yeah, now it's just no Meatloaf for me. He was great in Fight Club, though.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
his name was Robert Paulson.
So there was something I heard about Fight Club. Now, Dan, you're big fan of Chuck. What's his name? Chuck Palumbo, whatever his name is.
Palahniuk, yeah. In fact,
yeah.
they had a little interview with him today on the radio. I was listening to it.
So now in the movie, in Fight Club, we've all seen it, right?
Right.
So
not going to give anything away.
We know that Tyler Durden is a figment of his imagination.
I'm not supposed to talk about this.
Well, we're not talking about the actual Fight Club itself.
Oh, okay. Then.
Was Helena Bonham Carter's character also a figment of his imagination?
No, and I think in the book it's a little bit more. It's a different kind of thing. They go. You know how she was like going to groups like him?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she goes to like more groups and more crazy shit happens. So I think she's a real character.
Because when it was kind of described to me, it made perfect sense that she was also a figment of his imagination.
I guess, but then like, what does she do? Like, the Tyler Durden does things,
right?
You know? But what does she actually do? Doesn't really,
I don't know. I'd have to watch the movie again.
Yeah,
like she doesn't have any part in Project Mayhem,
Right. Which
she shows up at the end.
I should watch that movie again.
It's great.
All right. How about we talk a little hockey?
Sure.
Oh, yeah, hockey.
All right. So I want to get your opinion on this team right now, the Devils as we know it. And it looks like it's, we pretty much have I would say, a really good idea how the team's going to look as far as opening night goes. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being you are super comfortable, you are happy, you couldn't be happier with that, whatever we're talking about, 1 being the lowest. And we'll rate it as top 6, bottom 6, defense, goalie. We'll go down the line and we'll do coaching and everything else. So let's start with the top 6 as we know it to be would be Meyer, Heischer, Mercer, Hughes, Toffoli, and Bratt, right?
Yep.
So let's say those are our top 6. And we'll go Dan, Tone, Bob, me. On a scale of 1 to 10, Dan, how comfortable or how good or not good do you feel about our top 6?
Wow. I mean, I hesitate to throw 10 because like 10 is utter perfection.
10's like 6 Connor McDavids.
Yeah, like 10 is. But to be honest, if you were saying like, well, if you're going to call it 9, who's 10? I don't know who 10 is. So I'm going to say 9, but that's just because I don't know how well 10 exists in the real world. But I'm very confident with this top 6. It looks great. We have not seen them play in this arrangement yet, and how it's going to shake out. It might not live up to expectations, but on paper, it's wonderful. I mean, I can't ask for much more out of the top 6.
Tom?
9.
I'm going to say 9 also. I agree with Dan. I mean, I hate to say 10 because if you say 10, you seem like a total, but I mean, I'm pretty damn happy with it. And, I'm excited to see him play. And I think that, I think 9's about right, Dan.
Bob?
As the official homer of homers here, I have no problem going with a 10 because I love all 6 guys that we have up there and the fact that we can even move some around, and I'd still be comfortable if a guy jumped down to the 3rd line. I'd still be so comfortable with our top 6. I think we've only scratched the surface as to what they can do. I think we've got at minimum 3 players that are going to have better years in Jack Hughes, Meyer, and really interested to see what Toffoli can do with this group. So this will be probably the only 10 I give out, but I will give it a 10.
All right. I mean, I really can't argue with that, but I'm going to go with a 9 as well. And kind of for the same reasons you went with a 10, I'm going to go with a 9. I could easily go with a 10, but there is the Toffoli and the Meyer factor. We don't really know how they're going to play in this system. Of course, we think, and for all intents and purposes, they should do fantastic in this system. But just because of that little unknown, I mean, by Christmas time, it could be a 10.5. But I'm going to go 9 as well. So now let's drop to our bottom 6. And I mean, I'll throw 6 guys at you. Let me know if you guys disagree with who I think is going to be in this lineup to start. So I'm going to go Haula, Palat, and Holtz. Hopefully, I mean, I'm guessing that spot is going to be saved for him. Unless somebody just comes in and takes it from him, and then McLeod and Bastian and Nolan Foote. So that would be the bottom 6 that I'm going. That I would say, is there any argument from you guys on the bottom 6 on those guys, or do you think that's pretty
not
much
an argument? I'm just really interested to see what Nosek brings because he was brought in for a reason, and I think that they really envision him there.
You see him as a regular starter on the 4th line?
I don't know. I'm just. It's where I'm thinking he would go. I'm not saying that Foote can't outplay him.
Too?
Right now, a depth guy. I mean, he's a guy that can play center. He can play wing. He can play anywhere on the bottom six. So I think he might now would just be a depth guy. As far as I don't know if Nolan Foote doesn't really impress in camp and they want to send him down another year, or at least get him started down there, then maybe one of those guys, Lazar needs, maybe one of those guys takes that spot. But I think it's probably going to be Nolan Foote to start. And I think that line of Foote, McLeod, and Bastian would be a really good line. I think Nolan Foote can fit in there even better than Miles Wood did.
I was just saying that's what I was missing. I was like, who was on the left, right?
Right.
It was Wood. Right. Okay. Let's go around.
So, Dan, with the bottom six, those guys, 1 to 10.
I don't know if I'm quite as excited about them as the top six, but that's because we're talking about bottom versus top. As far as them doing their jobs, I think they're really definitely going to do their jobs. I'm just a little worried about does it have proper amount of grit there? It very well could. Sometimes you really want that more out of your third and fourth lines to be the punishing, checking lines if necessary. I think they could pull that off. So I'm not saying they can't, but that question hangs a little bit heavier than the questions I have about the top line. So I'll give them a solid 8. And this is graded on a pretty hard scale. I'll be honest with you. Yeah. You could give them a 9, but I'm going to go with an 8.
Okay. Tone?
I'm going to go with 7, I guess. I mean, I don't even know. I'm not convinced that Holtz winds up on the team or even Foote. So I don't know. I mean, I have question marks there. And I do have – and the grit is a question on this team still for me. I know we've talked about it, and some people feel like we filled those spots. I don't know if we have 100% or not. We're going to find out, but I'm going to say 7.
First of all, this for me is actually on the strength of the fourth line. I'm going to assume that they will give us pretty much what they gave us before, with 2/3 of that line definitely going to be, what it was before. The third line, the jury's still out for me a little bit. Like, I know what Holland could bring. I think Palat's going to bounce back. I'm still confident in the group. I think I would go with an 8-2 overall as a bottom six. But the reason I think that I'm more comfortable doing 8 is because, and I've said it 100 times, I see a scenario where to get a little extra pop in that line, you could throw Mercer up and down on that. And now you got a third line that can be defensively responsible, that can take the body, that has some veterans in there. And then you got the X factor like a Mercer in there that can just really change things up. So no matter what they do, moving 1 or 2 here and there, I'm still comfortable overall that we have a solid third line that can do that job, and a fourth line that's probably one of the best fourth lines. So I'll give it an 8.
Okay. I'm probably at where Tony's at. I'm probably at a 7 with the bottom six. I mean, we got to see more out of Palat. He's got to stay healthy. He's got to show us, why we paid him so much money. And this is a year for him to show up. Again, like Tony said, it might not be Holtz. If it's, who knows? Maybe it's Graham Clark. Maybe it's, somebody that we're not expecting. So there's a little bit of uncertainty with that third line. I do like our fourth line. I mean, we have one of the best face-off guys in the league. Nate Bastian, apparently, like we've talked about a lot of times, is the glue on this team. He is by far the linchpin. We cannot lose Nate Bastian. So I'm going to go 7. I think there's definitely room for improvement there. I want to see Eric Haula finish a lot this year, and, especially early on in the year, kind of start the season the way he ended it.
He had a slow start last year.
Yeah. I want to see him come off to a quick start. I want to see Palat play, all 82 games, and I think Palat can bring a lot to this team. The grit, we're going to see. We have some guys like Toffoli, like Meyer, like Palat, like they weren't here last year. Let's see if that does affect the grit factor. So I'm going to give it a 7. So goaltending, Vanacek and Schmidt.
Well, I know that's probably everybody's biggest question mark, right? I go back and forth every time I think about this question, like comparing it to other teams or comparing it to your ideal, and those are sometimes two different things. But I can't really go over a 7. We have unproven goaltenders. We have reason to be a little concerned with Vanacek in the playoffs, and I only mean a little bit because I still think his performance was maybe a little bit, judged harshly, considering it was a team letdown. He didn't prove he could do it either. So, that's a big question mark. Schmid, we've got a lot of great days ahead of us, quite possibly, but again, question marks. He worked some magic for us, but not enough to get out of the second round, and I don't know if anybody would have, to be fair. Again, it was a team collapse there. So I'm not really negative on it, but, I get it, and I think it could be realistic to give them a 6 or a 7. I'm going to go on the low end and say 6.
Okay. Tone?
Yeah, I'm going to go 7, and it's the same thing that Dan said. And Vanacek, I do think he can win. I just don't know if he can win get us through the playoffs. I just don't know where his stop button is, or his slow down button is. Schmid,
it's game 1 in the playoffs.
Yeah. Schmid, I think that with Schmid, it's like, we don't know. I mean, I hate to say this and compare this, but he could be a future goalie for us, or we could feel the same way we felt about Blackwood in 2 years with him.
Very true.
So you just don't know.
I think of him like Keith Kincaid. I get a little bit Kincaid vibes from him. Like, wow, this guy could really be great, and then he turned out he wasn't. And
you just don't know. He's not.
Schmid, right.
We know he's not. I hate to say this, but we know he's not a Vasilevsky. I feel like we know this, but what is he? We don't know, and I think that's a big question mark, and that's why I wanted to actually say 5 at first, but I'm going to go a little higher just because I'm going to hope on the upside that Vanacek has a great year. Because I do think Vanacek's career has not been that long, and he's judged on a certain amount of games.
Right.
It's one of those things. I mean,
yeah, but
I think he has something to prove this year. I think after last year because of the criticism.
I don't think he's judged unfairly. I mean, just because
I kind of do.
Why? Because
I think
sit there and say
if it wasn't for Vanacek, we don't go to the playoffs last year.
And, and if you watch the games, I think there was one game where I will give him 2 goals he should have stopped. Now that's not great, but other than that, when you look at all the goals that were let in, I mean, there was a lot of problems that had little to do with him, and I don't think.
But I think when we're talking about the the knocks against Vanacek, it's always been he's not a playoff guy. I can't see how that, knowing even what we knew before he came to the Devils and what we saw last year, I don't think that saying that is unfair. He has to prove it. I'm just saying, I don't think the guy is getting an unfair
fall right
shake.
into that box.
Yeah,
but I think our whole team
did
collapsed,
exactly. But he did exactly what we talked about after Christmas that we were nervous about. Oh, the knock against him is he falls apart at the end of the year. He's not a playoff guy, and it happened. Like we fucking saw it. So I don't think that I'm just saying I don't think that the criticism is unwarranted. I just think
other guys like Hellebuck deserve that criticism also then, because I think that they had the same fate last year, and there's a lot of other guys that did, and I think that we're a little more skeptical because we see these guys every day. It's kind of like when we talked to the Blue Jackets guys last weekend, and they're excited about Severson coming there, right? Well, we see these guys play all the time, and it's always different when you see people play all the time. And I think Vanacek did. Obviously, there was a lot of problems in the playoffs last year, but there was a lot of other guys who had problems that don't get the finger pointed at them. Last year.
I think to give you can't kind of compare Vanacek and guys like Hellebuck and stuff. Hellebuck's been around a lot longer. He's had a lot more success. He's always been a number one. This is the first time Vanacek has really been a clear number one starter, and he played fantastic the regular season. He does that again this year. I'm over the moon. I have no problem with him regular season. He's given me no reason to worry about that right now, but he does worry me a little bit in the playoffs. I'm just saying, I kind of agree with everything you guys are saying. I just don't think that the criticism is unwarranted. I think his job is to make it warranted.
I will say it's definitely warranted in that he didn't prove that he's, for whatever the reason was. You could say, oh, it's not all his fault. He didn't get a chance to, or he didn't prove that he's your deep playoff guy.
Right.
And that's the that you can't argue with.
And there was a lot of guys on our team that was in that bracket last year that we can all say that.
There were.
Absolutely. I agree with you.
Now, what about you, Bob, with the goaltending?
Yeah, this is a tough one for me because obviously it is one of the areas of weakerness on the team. Not in general terms, like if you look at the regular season and what these two goalies are capable of, it's very easy to give them a high watermark. But what we're doing here is kind of putting in the whole picture, right? We're trying to consider what they can do in a regular season and the playoffs based on what we've seen. so far. And what we talked about when we first started doing this is if 10 is that gold standard, then that's my baseline to know I can't go near that. That's like the Boston goaltender tandem, right? So if that's a 10, how far away from that are these guys? So, I mean, I still have faith in them. I think they're great goaltenders. I said before, the goalie who made the saves in the regular season, that goalie's still in there come the playoffs. So maybe the next playoffs is a completely different thing. Absolutely. So I'm comfortable giving them a 7, which I don't think is a knock. I think a 7 is for goaltending. For what we're looking at is maybe above average to get us where we need to get started.
I think there's half the teams in the league that would take Vanacek and Schmidt as their 1-2. So I'm giving them a 6. I want to see Schmidt rather get a lot more starts this year. I really hope they don't jerk him around. I hope he's set. He's our backup or 1B or whatever the fuck you want to call him. And I'd like to see him slowly get the reins, or at least let's see what he has.
Definitely, we have to see more from him.
Vanacek
and preferably early on, not wait till later on.
Exactly. Let's give them, and I could see them just splitting this thing right down the middle. I really can.
Yeah, I don't want to do that the whole way. How about you? Do you want to go the whole way with 50-50 split?
No, I'm okay with if you wanted to do, 30 starts for Schmid and 42 for or what is it, 52 then? For 30 to 35 starts for Schmid, give the rest to Vanacek. But who's ever really playing better throughout the year has to get the start for the playoffs. Like we were hoping the beginning of last year, like I think all we were saying is this is great. We have Vitek Vanacek. I hope he can get us to the playoffs. Well, he did. Yeah. Now I hope he can get us deep in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. I agree. But I hope that they give them whichever one is emerging as, after splitting the games a little bit, let's say the first half of the season, whichever one is emerging as like the clear number 1, which let's hope that kind of happens, right? Because they could not, get out of each other's shadow. But if they did, I wish they would do what they didn't do last season, which is kind of like, okay, this is our number 1. And the backup's there to take over in case that shits the bed. Instead, remember, we were juggling 3 goalies and crazy wasted starts. So hopefully there's nothing crazy like that this year. I think you give yourself and your goaltender a better chance if you have a number 1 to say it and ride him until you can't. And there's no reason to blame them for putting Schmidt in over Vanacek. They shouldn't have, just lost all 4 to the Rangers. That would have been bad. So you need to make that change if necessary. But I think that it might help to get there with a clear number 1. That's what I'm saying.
And it's interesting what you said, because did any of how they managed Blackwood, Vanacek, and Schmid last year, especially towards the end of the year, did any of that kind of fuck with Vanacek's head a little bit?
I honestly feel like it would have. I don't know if it did, but I could understand if it did.
I mean, we all know that goalies are fucking mental anyway. So then when you start putting, that, well, now we're running 3 goalies and, he's sitting out the last game, but who's backing me up? And then, how much faith do these guys really have in me going into the playoffs that they're still checking out Schmidt and Blackwood all this time? Right. All this stuff doesn't mess with your head. And then he's in the game. The Devils play like shit in front of him. And before you know it, he's down 2-0. And, he never got it back. So I think, I'm totally willing to give it a go. And the more I was thinking about, making a move for a goalie, this and that, I kind of have settled in as of right now. I mean, if the season starts and they're both playing like shit, everyone's going to be screaming for it. But as of right now, I am kind of cool with just run those 2 and let's get to the playoffs and let's see what they can do. Whoever's got the hot hand, play them in the playoffs, and let's see what we can do with these guys. If the same thing happens again next year, well, then, you have guys like, you can maybe trade for, a guy like Swayman. Maybe you can get Hollabuck on the free agency market if he hasn't left Winnipeg yet. So there's other options out there.
I mean, if they lose, they lose. But if there's another, 8-goal games, several of them, then, that's an obvious big-time move. When they were in their heyday, with Marty, you never worried about goaltending. You're going into the playoffs, and it was, I hope we can just get some goal scoring. You never worried about that. I hate going into games worrying about my goaltender. I hate it.
Well, I think we also have a lot of pieces. Obviously, if we see something falling apart in the beginning, we have a lot of pieces we can move. We've built that system where it's like that. And going back to the Brodeur thing, I mean, that was a whole different world. Like you lived and died with your goalie. If you lost, you packed it up for that year and you said, okay, this is going to be our starter next year. There's no doubt. This guy's playing 75 to 80% of the games. It's just the way it is. Now you're running with 2 goalies, 3 goalies. 2 years ago, we're running with 7 goalies. It's like a clown car. You don't know who the fuck's getting out, but I mean, but we do have the pieces to make the move. And I believe that the team is, we talk about Buffalo as a team who's kind of expected to shit or get off the pot, right? And eventually, like, we are that team now who has very high expectations. And I believe Fitzgerald, if we see, we're like month in, 2 months in, and we're just, shit in the bed, I think that there'll be some moves made. Because, like, we do have those pieces to move.
And he knows now the team he has. Like, he's, we've all seen what they did last year. You can't waste a year because you're still trying to figure out your goaltender. You can't waste another year, so. All right, so before we get to Tom Fitzgerald and his grade, let's go behind the bench. Lindy Ruff. How comfortable are you with Lindy Ruff as our head coach, Dan?
Lindy's amazing. I can never feel just one way about Lindy Ruff. Even when there's a game where I'm like, what was he doing? I'm like, oh, he must know what he's doing. And then the other way around, when he's winning and stuff, and I'm just thinking, does he know what he's doing? He's amazing. But he obviously does know what he's doing. I think he's been good for this team. There's no doubt about it. He related well with these guys. I think with the experience he has, he's the kind of guy to carry him to the next level. Because I say that, like, sometimes you need a coach who's really good with young players, and then they get to a certain level, and you need a different kind of coach. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that's going to come to a point with the Devils as, like, okay, you've matured to a certain point. Now you're not executing. We need a coach who's going to be bigger on execution, less on player development, because that's kind of like, Lindy's forte, working with young players. So I don't know if, like, this could be the year where the magic runs out. I can see that happening.
I never even thought about it the way that you just put it, and it makes perfect sense. It really does. Is there going to come a time where maybe this team does need a different kick in the ass or, something of that nature? I get totally what you're saying. So what's your number on Lindy?
Might also look at it like, this is my last shot, dude.
Yeah.
So I am not player developing anymore either. We're going for the cup. So, I just don't know which way it's going to play out is what I'm saying. Can he change his stripes or not? I still think he's excellent. I'm going to give our coaching, I'm toggling back and forth between 8 and a 9. It's mysterious, but you can't argue with last year's results. I'm going with a 9.
Okay.
I'm going to go with a 9 also, and I think I'm going to go with the same thing you guys were saying about Vanacek. I'm going to go, what have you done for me lately? And I think that he's been nothing but good for the Devils. He's worked the players love him. I mean, you hear they have a lot of great stuff to say about him. Fitzgerald loves him. I believe he was brought in here to deal with the young players. He's one of the most winning goalies ever, winning coaches ever. The guy's just, I feel like, obviously we're talking about, we're in a NHL now where if there's a problem, it'll be switched. And I don't know, with him, I don't know if he was brought in to be a 10-year coach. I thought when we brought in Burnett was kind of eventually going to be the guy that took over. But I also believe that there's a lot of faith in him, and I'm going to go, like I said, he's done nothing but good for the team, and last year was amazing. And if we win 10 games this year, will I change my tune? Yeah, of course. Everybody will, but I think he's done a great job up to this point.
Lindy won't be there if that happens.
I think he's done a great job to this point, and I couldn't be, more satisfied with what he's done with that team.
Okay. Bob?
Yeah, we're going 9s up, man. I agree. He was just the right coach. He's still the right coach for right now. I was a big supporter of him last year. I thought that maybe he could have won the Coach of the Year for sure. Yeah. He is really good with the kids. These guys are still kids, but to that point of, will they get to the point of maybe getting a little older and outgrow them? I think we're going to worry about that between our 4th and 5th cups. Well, let's see. He's going to help us get to that 4th one first before we need to worry about that.
Homer, man.
I love it, right?
You really are.
Let's go.
All right. Hey, so I'm not going to break the tradition. Even though I find that Lindy is maddening to no end sometimes. He drives me fucking crazy for all the reasons that Dan said, and we talk about it a lot, and we will talk about it during the year.
I'm sure.
You can't argue with the results, right? And then with Travis Green here now, I'm hoping that, like you said about Andrew Burnett possibly being his successor, I'm hoping that maybe Travis Green steps into that role. And maybe he'd be the guy in a year or two when Lindy's ready to step down, when this team's, fully ready to go and in the right direction. So I'm going to give Lindy a 9. I shit on him a lot, but, it comes from a place of love. Tom Fitzgerald.
We did skip the defense, right? Or did I?
Oh shoot,
No, we have not.
defense.
We have not hit that yet.
Yeah, let's go back then. I completely forgot. Let's go with our decor. In the decor, I'm gonna throw. Let's see. We're gonna go Hamilton, Siegenthaler, Marino, Hughes, Miller, and Ball, and we'll throw Smith in and maybe Nemec in as reserves.
Right.
Okay.
Sound
So
good?
looking at that whole core there, wow, so much potential, right? I mean, that it may turn out to be one of the best defensive lineups ever, and we won't know that for a couple of years. I don't know. We definitely don't know that right now. Maybe we'll know that after next year. I can see that this team, their defense may actually take a little bit of a step back as you lose a little bit of experience. I could also see them just launching it forward because there's so much talent there. I mean, look how fast Luke Hughes developed in a handful of games. What is he going to do over the season? Hard to imagine he's going to be one of those guys like, after a great, amazing 5 games, he, wallowed and, going up and down for the next 3 years. I just don't see that, But because of the inexperience, I don't think I can give them anything higher than I think it'd probably be fair to go with a 7. I was going to go for an 8, but I'm going to give him a 7. Now that 7 could turn to a 10, but it has some big question marks. If I'm giving the goalies a 6 for their question marks, I'm looking at the defense. Defense was at times inconsistent last year and this year because there's even more question marks, new personnel. I really am expecting better things, but the question marks make me give them a 7.
Okay, Tone.
Okay, I'm going to go with a 6, and there's a couple of reasons why. I mean, it's like, first of all, what Dan said is there is inexperience there. I think we're going to see some mistakes. I even saw I have high expectations for Luke Hughes. I love Luke Hughes. I think there's going to be a lot of growing pains. We did lose experience. A big question I have also is, I think we may have solved this a little bit, but I'm still looking for the guy who's going to defend the young guys getting hit. So I'm still have a little bit of question marks there. That's a big question. I know, of course, I like that style of hockey, but it's not even about that. It's just about people being held accountable. Because I did feel like that was a big issue, especially towards the later part of the season last year. Nemitz, I don't know if he makes the team. I hope, I would not be surprised if he starts off in Utica. Who I'm looking forward to see play, who I think is going to have a good year, and I watched him play in the IIHF, is Siegenthaler. I mean, I think that he has to step up a little bit more now. His role is much bigger than it was last year on this team.
He brings pretty much all the experience anymore.
Yeah, so I mean, and Ball, I mean, this is kind of, I feel like Ball's going to have a really good year this year, and I think he may be a guy, even though he's not much of a brute or whatever. I think he's going to put some hits in this year too, and I think that. But I'm going to go 6 just because I do believe there's going to be the growing pains. I do believe there's going to be some mistakes, but I think that's expected. I think this is a defense that in 2 years, if it's pretty much built the same, could be a killer defense. I just think it's it's going to take a little bit of the experience of fucking up a few times.
Okay.
So the assumption on the starting 6 would mean that 67% are returning, right? So it's 2 new players essentially that we're talking about here, and they were a good defensive core last year. So if they're talking about Dougie Hamilton and Siegenthaler maintaining their roles, and then you've got Hughes coming in with Marino, and I have all the confidence in the world in that line because of what Marino can do to help Hughes. So that is fantastic for me. The question mark becomes kind of that third line. I think it's probably going to be a Miller Ball situation, right? So there is some growing pains there. I'm going to go with a 7 because there's some question marks, but literally on the caveat, kind of like what Dan said, it's going to grow to a 9. It's going to grow to a 9 by the end of the year, whether that's Nemec coming in or just the guys
have
gelling.
You started that way?
What's that?
It might be a 7, but it'll grow to a 9.
It has the potential to grow to a 9.
This one, I'm literally, you
Depends
can chart
on how
it. That's
things
what I'm
go.
saying.
I do think we score more points on the defensive side this year.
Well,
I do think we'll put some more points.
I will give the D a 7, and I agree with everything you guys all said. I think that there will be some mistakes made early on, but I also saw a guy in Luke Hughes that picked this game up faster than any defenseman I've ever seen. And this guy was we talked about it, made mistakes and learned from it, didn't do it again. I fully expect this guy by the end of the year to just be an amazing all-around defenseman. I'm talking, I see maybe not this year, definitely by next year. I see him. He'll be up there with Cale Makar. I mean, he's that fucking good. And Nemec, if he makes the team, he's that fucking good.
Yeah, think about that. I mean, you got the two guys in like a Hamilton and a Hughes, where if they are allowed to do their job with confidence, now there's two Hamiltons basically from what we had last year. That's insane.
Look at the 2 power plays that you could have, and you know the high slot shot from either one of those dudes. It would just be amazing. Our power play could be fantastic. I am nervous and worried about the physicality. There are too many times that we look like a bunch of fucking pussies out there, and that cannot happen. If somebody gets in Vanacek's fucking house, he needs to be taken out, and we don't have that. And I'm hoping Miller can bring that. I'm hoping Ball can bring that. I'm hoping Hughes can bring that.
I hope the team kind of learns too when it's okay to take those types of penalties.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like even if it results in a goal, there's certain things you got to do throughout the season.
Like when Hischier was getting like completely.
Yeah, that's embarrassing.
Yeah, he was.
Nobody did anything.
Being fucking molested in the
everybody
ice.
Turned and looked the other way.
And this is something that in the playoffs will really get you because, in the regular season you can kind of get away with it a little bit. I listened to Matthew Tkachuk today he was on a show today. And he is ready for the season, by the way. He's definitely going to be back.
I thought you were going to say he's ready for our show.
No, but he was talking about that too. It's so like the pain you feel at the end of those playoffs. You're just getting your ass kicked the whole time. And I think that we saw with our guys even, they're going to – I mean, picture Jack Hughes going through a whole – say you make the whole run, you get to the finals, right? Yeah. It's such a – they're going to target this guy, and you do need to have someone that, like we were talking about Scott Stevens, you're next, right? You need to kind of have that guy that everyone on the other bench is like, okay, if we take a liberty on this guy, we're going to have to pay the price. We're going to have to answer for this. And last year we just saw – I mean, I remember, God, it was in the playoffs. Maybe I think it was against Carolina actually. But we saw, like you're saying, Nico and they would just stand in front of that and get knocked down. And just I kind of saw our guys just looking at each other like, is anybody going to take responsibility for this? Or
I really hope that Timo sets that tone for this team. That, now that he's here and this is a big part of his game, I really hope that, he takes that initiative and the guys kind of follow suit.
Bring a little bit of that playoff edge into the whole regular season. Because he, I hate hearing how he didn't give us that much in the playoffs, man. He gave us a shitload. I don't care about what the scoreboard said. He played a great role.
He has that Claude Lemieux thing going on.
Yeah,
he definitely does. He can get under his skin. But you guys on the defensive side, you mentioned Ball. Now, Ball's a kid. But now maybe it's time to grow up a little bit because he's got great size.
Yeah.
He could be an enforcer in the back end to make sure people are not, doing
I hope he adds that to his game because he should. When you're 6'6", you need to.
He threw a couple hits that I thought were pretty punishing. I don't know how much he considers himself like any kind of open ice hitter or anything, but he was between that frame, he could throw a good hit.
I remember hearing Danico say that it's a part of his game that he really wants to work on and get better at. So it's not something that he's shying away from. He's just trying, I guess, to be able to measure things properly and be able to fucking
comfortable in it.
Yeah, a comfortable lane.
Well, he's the type of guy too where you can slide, like he's a third pairing guy, but you could slide him up to that first pairing for a shift because something's going to go down or you want to protect somebody.
Right.
Put him out there with Hamilton for a shift when Jack Hughes line's out there.
Well, I'll tell you,
develop into that.
If you guys remember, there were a few games that he played up with Hamilton when he first. Well, he was up in the third pairing, I think, with Severson for a while, and then they moved him up with Hamilton, and his game went up to a different level playing with Hamilton.
They had success.
He has the chops.
I saw his skating improve so much over the course of the season, which is kind of crazy to say because these guys are playing their whole lives and everything. But there is something to get those quick moves that only the NHL does, especially for defensemen, like the changing direction and that kind of crazy edge work. His came a long way. I don't know if you remember, he was like spinning circles.
He'd spin himself out of plays.
Trying to keep up with stuff.
Yeah, all of a sudden he's in the fucking corner on his ass, and it's like, where the hell? He's spinning around.
And with that kind of size, I think like once the skating comes up enough, then he's a real weapon on defense.
I mean, you really look at a couple of years up the road, and if Ball works out, and Hughes is going to be Hughes, like we said, and Nemec is up, it could be a defense that can seriously dominate the NHL for a long time. That's fucking fun to watch.
And Ball has fought. Remember, he fought Goodrow in the playoffs last year. Yep. I mean, he's not afraid to. He will throw down. I just don't know if he's made it part of his game yet. Like there were certain dudes. Right. I remember when Miles Wood. Remember when Miles Wood first came in the league? I mean, Miles Wood was our guy that was throwing punches all the time, and he was effective. I mean,
If I was 6'6", 220, I'd fight all the time.
But he stopped to prove his game. Probably
he almost got himself out of the playoffs by like totally overreacting in game 2. You remember that?
Right? He was spaz out there.
They had to sit him for a couple games. Now when he came back, he definitely adjusted where he still had a good edge, but he was like, "All right, I'm not going to put us in a penalty box. I promise, coach."
I have a feeling, though. I will say, I have a feeling not to get off of the Ball thing, but I think that
get off my balls.
I think Wood's going to be. I think Wood's going to be good in Colorado. I think it's
for
him, and I think they're going to love him there. I liked Miles Wood. I was always a Miles Wood guy. I understand at the end why it was time for when he left, but I mean, I think that Colorado is going to be it just seems to fit him and make sense.
When I always felt like if everything syncs up for him, he's amazing because he's got a lot of power, a lot of speed. And, he could bring such energy. His thing was like, can he do it consistently? And can he temper that energy to keep you out of trouble?
Right.
When he does, he's amazing.
He really got on the coaches, with Ruff we were talking about. He did. I didn't see many guys get on Ruff's really seemed like bad side, but it seemed like for some reason Wood and Ruff, it was at the end, like you said, he was getting benched. Yeah, it was rough. It was definitely like
nice.
Rough Wood.
No.
I tell you, I mean, when we do our Stanley Cup picks, probably before the season starts, I'll give my Western Conference pick right now. Who's going to play? I think Colorado's going back to the Cup final. So I think Miles Wood will have some playoff success in Colorado, and he'll be a big part of it. I don't know who they're playing yet, but I do think Colorado's going to make it. So let's just do our GM grade, and then we'll do our little ad, and then we'll do the Immaculate Grid. That'll be cool. So, Tom Fitzgerald. I mean, are we going 10s across the board here?
I know. If Tom Fitzgerald has not earned 10 over these past 2 seasons especially, then there is no 10. So, I guess I can give him that 10 there. I mean, what moves are you going to pick on? There was I guess one or two guys that didn't really perform for us in the last 2 years, but his winning percentage is better than anyone else's.
Right. And
he's made all these great moves. And all the Devils fans I know, most of us never saw them coming. Timo Meyer thing was big. We knew he was out there.
But no one saw Toffoli coming.
Nobody saw that. Nobody saw Vanacek coming.
Yeah.
He's made so many great moves that even when people are paying attention, they still don't know how he does the trick. So that's a great magician there, and I'm going to give him a 10.
I'm going to give him a 10 also. I mean, what can you not like? I mean, you can't blame him for, like we were saying, like there might be you can't really blame him for the Bernier deal, right? That's just an injury. Right. That was one of the only things. Yeah. He didn't bring in, I mean, what are you going to play? I know I was hoping he was going to, I guess he's like a father, like some kind of relative to Kachuk. So I was kind of hoping that he would wind up there. But I actually heard Kachuk say he had 3 teams he had it down to. It was St. Louis, Florida, and there was there was one more he mentioned, but it wasn't the Devils. So I mean, besides that, I mean, Fitzgerald has done everything. He's changed his team around. He's just, like you said, Toffoli. You wake up one morning and you got Toffoli on your team. I mean, it's just you cannot be not impressed with what he's done with this team.
Agreed.
Yeah. 10, the guy had a plan and he stuck to it. And then when he saw that plan was about a year ahead of schedule or more, he pressed the pedal down harder. He doubled down. He got a couple guys that he wasn't sure if he was going to sign. Didn't matter. He went for it. So he's got a go for it mentality. I guess the only knock other people might want to give him, again, looking at the team as a whole, they say the weakest spot might be that A-list goaltender. But I'm not going to not give him a 10 because of that, because the way the market's dictated right now for a guy like Hellebuck, $9 million a year. It's just not shaping up. We don't know what this season's going to bring. It might turn out that he says, I am going to pull the trigger and get this absolute stud. But for what he's done so far, he's earned a 10 or more if we can give him more.
No, it's just a 1 through 10.
Damn it.
You can't give him more than that.
11, Chris.
Crazy talk. I got to give him a 10 too. Everything you guys said, and then also.
Oh, you can give him a 10 too, but I can't give him an 11.
10 as well. Sorry. And I just think he's also extremely well respected throughout the league. It's a big reason why he's able to do these things. There's not many GMs. There's always GMs that other teams won't do business with. I feel like anybody will do business with Tom Fitzgerald. He's just a class dude. Played that way, and runs his team that way. I love what he's done. I hope he's GM for another fucking 10 years. I really do. So, Can you guys believe? If I actually knew math and kept up on this stuff, we could actually fill out our averages. But maybe somebody would like to listen to a replay and do some math.
6, 7, 8, 9.
You know what tomorrow is? I know what Tom Fitzgerald's average was.
Yeah, it was a 10.
That I got right off the top of my head.
But my average for the team was an 8. Because
Okay.
I had 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 8's in the middle. So that's how I know.
Okay, I had 8 too then.
There you go.
All right, so we think our overall grade for the team, we figure right, the average was, we all were around the same, about an 8. That's impressive.
Yeah,
That's
say
good.
so.
You guys know tomorrow?
King Homer was a little bit higher. That's all right.
Yeah, you always are, though.
I know.
Well, actually, Tony's usually the one that's higher.
I had
That's
my
true.
role.
That's
Tomorrow's
true.
football, guys.
Tomorrow's
football.
What day
Tomorrow
is
we
tomorrow?
will
Thursday.
see.
I don't watch football on Thursdays. That's not that.
Chris, did you see what Chandler Joe? I don't know if you know who Chandler for the Raiders said that he came out last night and said, "I don't want to play for."
Yeah, so you didn't want to play for
Just
fucking your
begins
coach or your
already.
general
It
manager.
fucking begins already.
Yeah, that's not good. Yeah,
Is he going to
but-
lead like an exodus of players off the team with him?
Dan, I know you don't
No.
watch football, but I am cursed.
No.
I
know.
and
I know
Chris
you're
knows. I
cursed.
know we've won from bowls in the back of the day, but man, it is always like with the Raiders, it's like a reality show. There's always some
Yeah,
crap
it definitely
going on.
is like a
It's
reality
always
show.
a
But I'm not going to
reality
listen to
show.
you crying about the
Oh, whatever,
unsuccessful
man. Fuck
Raiders.
off.
I get
I
it.
love it.
That's all I'm saying. I
I
get
like
it.
the bizarro sports
There
like
are-
puff up between two people who like want to tell you, no, my team is worse.
Yeah,
Like,
you know
the
what?
op-
Yeah, everybody.
you know?
It's like Bizarro World. You're right.
Yeah.
Everybody argues about who's better.
You think
No,
your team
the
sucks?
Vikings
My
suck
team
so
sucks.
much worse than the Raiders.
But when
how
Derek
about
Carr's
this?
holding up the Super Bowl trophy this year in Vegas, and I'm
That's
crying.
not going to happen. That's not going to happen,
But
bro.
yet you still dream, both of you.
I,
Still
I,
dream.
I like New Orleans, but they're no. I don't see them coming out of the NFC. Not with that. Not with
I
that
saw
team.
someone said Cousins is the best quarterback in the NFC. What do you think about it?
I think he's the best quarterback in the NFC North, but I don't. I think there's a
Yeah.
guy about 45 minutes away that wears green. That's a hell of a lot fucking better, and that's Hurts and the Eagles. I hate them, but they're an amazing fucking football team. So, but we are a week away, so make sure that you go and download your DraftKings Sportsbook app. DraftKings, an official betting partner of the NFL, is giving you a can't-miss offer for Week 1, which starts tomorrow night. This week, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets instantly when
That's
you
a
bet
lot.
just $5 on any NFL game. It is a lot, and it's awesome. Like I said, I took mine. I did it. I got my $200 of free bets. I have the Devils winning the Stanley
If they would have
Cup.
gave
I
me
got
$25, I thought would have thought that'd
8
been cool.
$25 bets
That's
they
a
give
lot.
you. So yeah, you get your 200. So if you want it, then download the app now and use code THPN to sign up. New customers can take home $200 in bonus bets instantly just for betting $5. That's code THPN only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. ccdkng.co/football for eligibility, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply.
Wow.
I really hope we
That's
get Viagra
micro
ads one
machines.
day. Or
I
like,
want Viagra ads.
we're at
Chris will
that
be up for
age
that.
now. Some Viagra or Trojan or something.
I thought you at one point you said the CCCP, and I'm like, isn't that the old Soviet Union?
Yeah.
But,
CCPP.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris, you know who might not have to worry about football this weekend is where the hell is that? You guys seen that storm out there? The Hurricane
what
Lee?
storm?
This Hurricane Lee out there, it's going to be a Category 4, I guess, by this weekend, and it's
Where is
in
it?
the Atlantic. It is huge. It's in the Atlantic, and it's going to be
where in the Atlantic? So where in the Atlantic?
You got to pull it up on your map over there.
Cool.
But they
Well,
have
it's still in the south, making that little curve towards
but
Florida.
it is.
Typically-
Guys,
where it
but
sounds
they don't
like?
think it's going to
but
hit
it's
Florida.
so widespread.
They don't think it's
So
going to
right
hit
now,
Florida. Yeah.
What you know what they like to call that? The cone of uncertainty.
Yeah.
How big is the cone of uncertainty?
But this is it's could
bigger
affect
than the
you
cone of
guys. This
shame.
could affect Georgia. This is like a monster storm, man. It's like,
Georgia, I'm okay with.
My sister lives there.
No, yeah, we can't do that.
This one's a monster storm. They're saying like
I'll have
like
to keep an
5
eye
when
on
it
it.
hits.
All right. So this is the first time that I'm doing this, and I know it's the first time you guys are doing it. So has anyone heard of the Immaculate Grid? It's kind of this new thing now that everyone's doing in football and baseball and stuff. So
Immaculate reception.
it looks like this. Am I showing that okay? So now it has a box. So on this one here for today's going across, it's the Boston Bruins, the New York Rangers, and then it says 100-plus points season. On the other way down, we have Detroit, Colorado, and 50-plus assists for a season. So the first grid, we have to find a player that played for both the Detroit Red Wings and the Boston Bruins. Anybody think of a player?
Wait, and accumulated those points or no?
Nope, just for this.
Just
box,
a player.
Just a player that played for both teams actually, for Boston and Detroit.
Okay. So
Colin, come on, this is all you, buddy.
It's 5:00 in the morning here, man. I'm
We
trying
talked
to
about this
my
before
brain
the
is
show. We
spinning.
need you.
Adam,
Is this like a
My brain is
Sudoku?
spinning on
I don't
this.
know. I don't know what happens at the end. We're gonna do it though. Didn't Adam Oates play for both of them?
Are we allowed to Google
did.
for this?
I think we
If we have to, we might. But I think it's Adam Oates. I'm gonna put him
It's
in.
not devil, you
yes. Adam Oates is a selection. So Adam Oates is there. So now we need a player that played for Detroit and the Rangers.
There's a few actually, I believe.
Detroit and the Rangers. Marion Hossa played for the Rangers?
I would be surprised if he didn't.
Maybe.
But can we get the Jeopardy music for this next time so it's not definitely
Did
silent?
Gabrick play for both?
I don't know. How about Larionov? Did he?
Oh my God, I don't know. I guess if you, I see you guys looking down. Somebody's on their phone.
I mean, that's too much work. But
Yeah, the Rangers and the Red Wings. Who played for both of them? I'm trying to think. of like
I'm
back
trying
in
to think
those.
what ones did they rent on their way out?
Right, that's what I'm
Yeah,
thinking.
The Rangers bring everybody in, right? So
Right.
Yeah,
Did
so like
Yzerman get a turn? It's like Rangers are like the whore of the NHL when you think about it.
Brendan Shanahan.
oh shit,
Yeah,
a good
that's
one.
right.
How did we miss
That's
that
right.
one?
We should know
That's
that one.
right.
Yeah, that one
Also,
should have popped out.
Was
yeah.
a devil. Yeah.
Hartford back to Jersey, yeah.
All right.
Everywhere.
Now we need a Detroit Red Wing that has scored 100-plus points in a season.
Fedorov.
I mean, Fedorov, right?
It's gotta be
Bure.
Fedorov. Oh wow.
Yzerman?
Right?
Has he done it?
I don't know. Pick one. Who do you guys want to use?
I'm gonna say
Fedorov or
Fedorov.
Bure?
Fedorov, I think, is a
Yeah.
safe bet. Yeah.
Okay. Sergei Fedorov. Oh, no.
No.
No. It won't tell me if I'm wrong or not until afterwards.
No, you're not wrong.
I'm just trying to find his name. There he is. Okay. All right. Now we need a player that played for both Colorado. This one's easy. Colorado and Boston. We're just going to go with Ray
How
Bork.
about Ray?
Yeah.
Took our cup, dickhead.
Yeah, he did. All right. Colorado and the Rangers. Georgiev.
Drury? No, wait. Drury? No.
Oh, did he?
Right. Georgiev was the backup, right? Let's go with Georgiev. What's his first name?
Okay.
Anyone?
Let's hope it's Gregor.
Anyone know?
Gorgiev?
No, do you look it up real quick, Bob?
Yeah.
Just look up the. I need to
spell the last name.
Well, it'll pop up. I just need to. Just put in Colorado Avalanche goalies.
All right.
I need his first name so I can start this thing.
Sorry, I need glasses, so this is taking longer.
While you're looking at that, So Fedorov's highest point season was 120 guys.
Nice. So we got him right.
Go.
So how do you spell it?
Getting there. Hold on.
It's 93.
Gieo.
I need his first name.
There's Alexander.
Alexander?
Yep.
If I was his parent, I would have named it Gregor.
Yeah, Gregor works way better.
Yeah.
How do you spell Georgiev?
Georgie.
He's not coming up here.
It can't come up because it's so weird, that language. We can't spell that.
Why is Alexander Georgiev not coming up on this?
Because there's nobody thinks about him, dude. You got
but you have to be able to pick a player that played for both, and his name's not even coming up on here, like on the list. I don't understand it. So, all right, spell Georgiev again.
GEORGIEV.
It's like Georgiev.
Got it.
So
can't use him. We can't fucking use him for some reason.
Why can't we use him?
I don't know.
It's a Russian.
Give me another player that played for the Rangers and the Avalanche. We can skip that for now. How about an Avalanche player that scored 100+ points in a season?
Sakic.
Forsberg, right? I don't know.
Oh yeah, both good choices, really.
And fucking who did it this year for him was oh shit. I can't think of his fucking name. Starts with an R. I can't think.
I'm getting Darren Helm for the other one.
For Avalanche and Rangers?
I thought it was Avalanche and Red Wings. Was it
No.
Rangers?
Yeah, Avalanche and Rangers.
Oh, well, that's not what I
That's
had.
what we need. And we need, whatchamacallit, the 100-point season for Colorado. And that was, who do you guys want to go with? Peter Forsberg?
I said Forsberg.
Sure. Forsberg's fine. Sakic's a good one, too.
All right, we're going to go. We got Forsberg in. So now we need a Boston Bruin player with 50+ assists. So just go with Marchand.
I don't know.
Marchand, Bergeron, Cam Neely, Pasternak. No?
Yeah.
I think of more goals, but he definitely has a ton of assists.
Yeah, I mean, or Cam Neely. You want to go with Is there somebody so obvious?
No. I'm sorry. I'm still Googling the Avalanche Ranger thing.
Yeah.
And it literally came up with Alexander Georgiev. And underneath that, it says the NHL Immaculate Grid September 6th answers you need to know. So apparently everyone's trying to get this guy. It's not working.
Am I spelling his? I mean, it's Alexander, right?
Yeah.
Alexander.
No, it could be Alexander. Could be spelled like 5 different ways.
A-L-E-X-A-N-
Well, how's
D-A-R.
Alexander spelled?
D-A-R.
Spell it
Here's how
again.
I've seen it. A-L-E-K.
Is that how it's spelled? L-E-K?
Alexander.
No.
I want Georg.
S-A-N-D-R-E-R.
Okay, but how do you spell it? How does he
Same.
spell it?
I have no idea. It's
I'm asking
Russian.
Bobby.
Alexandar.
Got him.
E-R.
Thank you. Jesus.
So we
All
were
right.
right the whole time.
Yep. All right, a Bruin player that scored 50+ assists. We're going to go with Cam Neely, or are we going to go with Pasternak?
Pasternak.
All right, we'll go with Pasternak. David Pasternak. All right. And now we need a New York Ranger with 50+ assists in the season. We got 2 more questions left. A Ranger with
Messier have that?
50,
Did,
50+ assists. Chris Kreider. I think he did, right? Maybe,
Vanaged,
yeah,
probably
maybe
had. I don't know
not.
what's a
I was
Vanaged
thinking
had.
Aaron.
Spanaged, but
How
I'm
about-
not sure.
Maybe we go like old school and go like Rod Gilbert.
There you go.
Possible.
All right, we're going to use him. Now we need a player that had 100
we forgot Brian
plus.
Leach. That would have been a good one.
Yeah, 100+ points in a season and 50+ assists in a season.
Any player? Or
Any
one?
player with
was it
100+
again?
points,
I mean,
100+ points,
McDavid?
50+ assists. That's what I was thinking.
that's pretty safe, right?
Yeah, it definitely.
Just go
we
with
talked about
Connor.
this a little while
I mean,
ago.
Mario, we can use
Gretzky.
or- yeah,
Definitely.
I mean,
yeah.
who do you want to go with?
I say stay modern. Go
Yeah,
McDavid.
definitely.
McDavid,
McDavid's got it.
Connor McDavid. Okay, now we can see how we did. The Immaculate. We did Immaculate. We got 192 out of a rarity score. I don't know what that means. but the average score is 6.5. Let's see. There were 160 possible answers for the who played for Boston and Detroit. 160 possible ansers.
Are 159 of them wrong? Because I googled
No. There's just they tell you that you pick. They go by how rare I guess your picks were.
Yeah, because you might have had one out of one, whereas
the masses are picking.
Well, this is okay. Yeah, so 61% of the people took Tyler Bertuzzi for that. We didn't even think about them.
That's right.
Yeah,
for who played for the Rangers and Red Wings, 21% took Brendan Shanahan. For the 100-plus point season for Detroit, 56% took Yzerman. For who played...
These are of the people who got it right, though?
This is just a percentage of the people that played. Yeah, all the answers.
I think we get more points the more rare we pick.
Right.
Yes.
Understood.
So Ray Bork...
So no more Googling.
Ray Bork got 68%. Alexander Georgiev got 34%. Joe Sakic got 43%. Bobby Orr got 26%. Mark Messier got 28%, and Wayne Gretzky got 30%. Those were the highest. So
there's a lot of choices there.
I'm trying to see exactly how our score fared up. It said average.
People are pretty fucking bored during the off season, right?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, right.
Our rarity score. Our rarity score is 192. I don't know what that means.
Hey guys, what percentage of sports fans do you think are really math nerds? Because I don't know about you.
Not me.
I think it's higher than the general population, though.
I agree.
If you took any random sampling of people and you pick sports fans, you're going to find more math nerds among sports fans. Not most people I know, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Every 5 or 6, there's one guy who's constantly with the percentages and the numbers. He's doing math in his head that I'm like, A, I don't know how you do it, and B, I don't know why you do it.
And especially now with all the analytics, it's gotten even fucking. It's like the regular statistics on steroids. Oh, they've totally won. Not only have they won, they've infiltrated. There are fucking divisions of people that just do analytics that work for NFL teams, NHL teams. That this is all they do is run fucking stats by the coaches, by the general managers, by it's ridiculous.
And now there's a good amount of computer nerds mixed in with them.
Oh yeah,
because this is all available on million different apps.
It's taken a lot of the gut feelings away from certain plays and certain coaching. It's my gut says I need to go for it, but statistics say that 57% of the time I shouldn't go for it. So I'm going to punt it, or I'm going to kick a field goal, or I'm going to whatever. Dude, go with your fucking gut. But it's also the easy fallback when things fail. Well, the numbers said that it was in my favor, so I went for it, and then you can't argue with that. Right. So it kind of, I'm not a fan of all the analytics, though. I don't know what half of them mean.
No, they're crazy. Sometimes I'll run across somebody who can synthesize to me why a couple looked at together are interesting, but it's so much there that you need to literally be able to pick through it all. As far as does this even matter? Because you have so many stats about exactly where on the ice the shot is taken, how many, how many, what time of this game the shot is likely to be taken. It's all, it's insane. And
even though it's played in an arena when the weather's below 36 degrees, these guys don't play. So what the fuck is going on? How's this even factor in? No, it factors in somehow. But all right, I think that's going to just about do it.
Guys, want to end on a hype note?
I would like to.
Got a little excerpt from the hockey news. I think it's a good couple seconds here.
Let's hear it.
This is a quote directly from them. Making the postseason is an absolute must for New Jersey this year, but so is making it to the Eastern Conference Finals and beyond. Their core of forwards and defensemen remain outstanding, and they're going to give every opponent a run for their money before they try and make a deep playoff push. New Jersey may be the sexy pick for pundits this season, but that's for good reason. They're dynamic, dangerous, and not even close to their peak.
So fucking true. I mean, awesome they really aren't. And here's the thing, too. I get really frustrated with all the hype around, we'll go back to the NFL, the New York Jets and the Detroit Lions. All everybody is talking about in the world of the NFL are those two teams. Two teams that didn't make the playoffs last year. Two teams that just because Detroit ended on a good note and Jets got Aaron Rodgers have not played one fucking game this season. And you look at what they did last year when all they did was basically they are the Buffalo Sabres. It's basically this. If you listen to NHL radio or put on NHL TV and all they talked about were the Buffalo Sabres because they ended strong and almost made the playoffs. Mm-hmm. You look at the Devils and the hype is fucking warranted. We did it. Like you saw us do it last year. We got, to the second round of the fucking playoffs. So yeah, like they showed it. And I don't think that pressure is going to get to these guys. I think that they fucking relish in it. And I think that all comes from Jack and they all just feed off him. I think this guy loves being in the spotlight, loves that this team is talked about as much as it is. And I think he's going to really flourish, man. This guy's going to get 16 primetime games this year. He's going to have a big, big stage to show off a lot. And I think he's going to.
Indeed.
So, guys, thanks so much for checking us out. For Dan, Tony, and Bobby, I'm Chris. We are the Uncle Puckers. Make sure if you go anywhere. What is that? Wherever you get our. Why are we getting an echo?
Just want to hear it twice.
Everybody's echoing. Dan, is that you? Did you do something?
Maybe.
Yes, you did.
So yeah, just like us, subscribe, give us 5-star rating. It goes a long way in promoting the podcast. We really appreciate it, and make sure to check out us and other really good shows on the Hockey Podcast.